He kōna ipurangi tēnei nā te reo irirangi o Aotearoa.
No mai whakarongo mai ki te Aotai whenua. Lovely to have your company again on Country Life. I'm Sally Round.
G'day, I'm Duncan Smith. Great to be back with fresh stories from rural New Zealand. We hope you've enjoyed our summer series while we've been taking a break.
In our first show for the year, it's time for celebrating as Miley the Huntaway turns a year old and hits some new milestones. You may remember last year, Janina was following her as she was trained up for work on the farm. And it seems she's made quite a bit of progress since we last met her.
Later on, Cosmo's in Hobbitland. Well, kind of. The farm he's taking us to in Golden Bay was a film set for one of the Hobbit movies.
We'll also be chatting to Federated Farmers President Wayne Langford about the year ahead. But first, a look at conditions on the land.
Things have become very dry in Northland, Te Tai Tokerau. Our farmer near Whangarei had about 100 millimetres in the past month, but strong winds have evaporated most of the region's rain. Many farmers have destocked there, so there are good stocks of feed. He says on-farm costs remain high, especially transport. In Pukekohe, conditions are also dry and wind has caused some damage to sensitive crops. Excellent onions are now being harvested for storage in packing sheds, though growers are apprehensive about the export market. Indoor tomato growers are also nervous that the brown rugose fruit virus, now in Australia, will eventually arrive in New Zealand.
It's also dry in Waikato, where many farmers are feeding out supplementary feed. Some have also implemented longer grazing rotations and flexible milking. Maize crops are high yielding though. In a few weeks' time, they'll have pregnancy scanning results for dairy cows, which most are optimistic about. Our Taranaki contact says things are not very pretty, with large parts of the coastline facing drought-like conditions due to strong winds. She says supplementary feed's being fed out and bought up, and many have moved to once-a-day milking. Cash flow's good though, and with a forecast dairy payout of $10 a kilogram of milk solids, the mood is still positive.
Meanwhile, Bay of Plenty growers have seen some really nice rainfall, with things well set up for a good harvest. The apple harvest has been a bit early this year, so it seems likely to be the same for kiwi fruit. Returns are better for avocado growers, but it's still not a happy industry. East Coast Te Tai Rāwhiti was on the verge of looking at a drought response before the rain set in. Between mid-December and the new year, our sheep and beef farmer contact had about 310 millimetres. The rain was especially hard for growers, with conditions too wet to harvest. Things are good on the facial eczema and fly strike front, though drench resistance remains a concern.
Hawke's Bay farmers have also seen a turnaround with things looking quite lush. A farmer had about 80 millimetres of rain in December. He says the rain was a real lifesaver as he was 2 weeks away from having to feed out. A lot of stock had been sold due to the dry and they're now hard to find. Last week there were no cattle for sale at Stortford Lodge yards. Fodder crops have bounced back and the sweet corn harvest is soon to start along with apples. Many Manawatu Rangitikei farmers have also come out of the pre-Christmas dry okay, with 150 millimetres of rain in the last month. Farmers aren't making a profit, but they're not losing as much as they thought they would be, one agent told us. Most are busy drafting lambs, pulling out cull ewes and prepping fly protection.
It's a similar story in Wairarapa, where most are in a good position having gone into the summer with very little stock. It means there's oodles of feed and most farmers are buying cattle or holding on to lambs. The store market is going strong, a good thing, at least for the sellers. Nets are going on in the region's vineyards. Meanwhile, Horo Whenua has been unseasonably cold, with one grower even lighting the fire. It's been bad for summer crops like zucchini and watermelon, but the Asian greens like pak choi and coriander have done okay and are currently being harvested. There's been good steady crop volumes and reasonable quality. A jump in demand has helped growers on the price front. Across Cook Strait to Tasman, Te Tai o Aorere and in Golden Bay, it's been a super season for dairy farmers after a dry start to the summer. There's been enough rain to keep grass ticking along and milk production is well up. We'll hear more on that later.
Further east, Marlborough's vineyards are only a few weeks away from harvest. They're carrying a heavy crop, so our contact, at the request of the company that buys the fruit, is taking off up to 10% of the grapes before they soften. On farms, soil moisture levels are well up on last year and stock are in excellent health. Merino properties are in lamb weaning mode, several weeks behind lower and coastal farms that wean early to beat the dry. A hill country farmer near Blenheim says he's about to start sowing rape and subclover at the same time. The rape's eaten in winter and the clover comes up in spring. His 2-year-old cattle are trading $200 to $300 a head, and good money's being paid for cull cows too. South Westland is dry. A Whataroa dairy farmer says it's one of the driest summers she can remember. It's been very hot too. A bit of rain this week hasn't been enough to green up parched paddocks that have high gravel content. Soil moisture levels are down to 4%. Normally they're over 50. Milking's going okay though. Cows are on a 10-in-7 milking schedule and winter feed crops are going into the ground. In Canterbury, Waitaha, our farmer was heading to the Harwood and New Fair. He was on bar duties in the rugby club rooms for the after-sale gathering. He says rain in the first 2 weeks of January has been a blessing. Every second day he'd wake up to persistent light showers. As a result, stock have plenty of feed and winter crops are looking good.
A farmer in Central Otago's Ida Valley was doing a second cut of lucerne when country life called. Barley is being harvested too. Some good rainfall after Christmas gave fodder beet, turnips and swede crops a welcome boost. With store lamb prices at $3.60 to $3.70 a kilo, a lot of lambs are on the move. Sheep are being dipped to reduce fly strike, while as a precaution, merinos and half-breds have been troughed for scald. That's a skin infection that can cause lameness when underfoot conditions are wet. On roadsides, fruit stalls are full of juicy apricots and peaches. It's been a mixed bag of weather this week in Murihiku, Southland. Sun, rain and unseasonably chilly. Lots of baleage has been made and barley and wheat harvesting is underway, but it's been a bit stop-start due to intermittent rainfall. Our contact in Gore says dairy farmers are still recovering from the very wet spring. Damaged paddocks have been regrassed and high empty rates in pregnant cows are being attributed to the wettest spring on record. A steady stream of lambs is going to the works and surplus ewes are being culled.
This is Country Life on RNZ National 101 FM.
Now to our guest this week, and this year we'll be going a little behind the public face of some of New Zealand's farming leaders. Earlier I spoke to Wayne Langford, who's not only a dairy farmer, the president of Federated Farmers and co-founder of the charity Meet the Need, but he's also very active in the area of rural mental health, husband to Tyler and dad of 3.
We run a small what is considered now a small dairy farm, 230 cows. My wife and 3 teenage boys are pretty heavily involved in the system as well. So that's my farm life, which is half my life. On the other side of my life, the president of Federated Farmers at the moment, and that takes me off farm a fair bit as well.
Have you finished milking for the day?
I have finished up today. Yep. Just shut the cows away and fixed up a fence. Hopefully that'll keep them in for the day. Yeah, heading home for breakfast shortly.
Just describe a typical day for you. All those different hats that you wear must keep you pretty busy.
Yeah, no, it does. We run a really simple farming system here, very kind of low input, and I'd like to think low stress. My day starts about 5:30 in the morning, cups on or milking at about 6, and then I get most of my farm jobs done in the morning before say 9 or 9:30. By then, my phone starts ringing, and my other life kicks in, which is advocating for farmers in numerous meetings, whether they be online or in person or over the phone. Yeah, that fills up a fair bit of my day before I'm lucky enough to head back out on the farm in the afternoon and tidy up a few jobs in the afternoon and enjoy the last of the sunset. So
you're spending a bit of time at the desk then. Do you enjoy that?
I don't know about enjoy it. It's unnecessary anymore. I enjoy getting out. Obviously meeting with people is fantastic, and helping drive kind of the industry forward. That's great. So thankfully, with the likes of Microsoft Teams and Skype and that sort of thing, I can cover off a few meetings, and so a bit less travel. But on the other hand, the in-person meetings are where the real action happens, I think.
Yeah. Have you had to change your farm system as you've taken on more and more roles?
Oh, definitely our farm systems, we've tried to simplify things as much as we can. The ultimate simplification would be milking just once a day rather than twice a day. It takes half of the stress out of the day probably. Yeah, and probably moving from a slightly higher input system to now a more lower input system, and just letting the seasons and the cows dictate, kind of how our production goes.
And how has the season been so far? Has it been a good summer there in Golden Bay?
Well, it's been a good summer to be a dairy farmer, not such a good summer to be a tourist in Golden Bay. So ever since Christmas, I think almost every day we've had some sort of rain or something, come over the hill. So Golden Bay is looking very green at the moment. Really happy with how summer's going. Mid-December it was pretty dry, and I was thinking we were in for a long summer drought, but no, it certainly changed after Christmas.
And productivity up?
Yeah, our farm's ticking along about 10% up at the moment, which is great. The last 3 seasons have been really challenging for Golden Bay and actually the top of the south as well. So, production's been well back. We're calling this one a bit more of a traditional Golden Bay season. The rains come when it should, the suns come when it should, and the cows are doing what they like to do, which is make milk, which is great.
Have you had a chance to get out there, Wayne, just to hear how other farmers in other sectors are doing, sheep farming, for instance?
Yeah, definitely. As part of my role, I travel the country a fair bit and get out amongst farmers. So I have been able to travel around and see how everyone's doing. Obviously, dairy farmers are quite buoyant at the moment with the milk price being where it's at and potentially still some more upside to that. Our sheep and beef farmers have been through a real challenging 2024, but the prices are beginning to lift back up to at least surpass the break-even point and hopefully make a bit of money again. So from that point of view, things are on an upward trend. Still a bit of work to do there.
About 6 months ago, when you were a year into the job as the president of Federated Farmers, you said things weren't looking too flash. Farmers had just been really in survival mode. Now, this government's brought in several policies favourable to farmers, including making it easier to hire migrant workers, a reprieve on on-farm greenhouse gas emissions. What's the biggest issue facing farmers this year that you want to get your teeth into?
You're right. We have had a number of ones in terms of removing a bit of weight off the shoulders of farmers, which has been great. Just focus back in on farming and get their businesses productive again. In terms of staffing levels, we're really low. Getting them back up to a point where we're not sacrificing productivity because of lack of staff. So that'll be really important. Focus of mine actually this year is in the freshwater space. We've come a long way with freshwater over the last decade or so. Now's the point to really leverage off that, move it to the next level again of work that we can do in that space.
What have you got in mind there in terms of a strategy for freshwater?
Well, I think what we've seen with past governments is it's been a bit of a football. One kicks it one way, another kicks it another way, and ultimately, the farmers have been in the middle of that because we cover so much area and we've got so much of an influence on it. So from my point of view, I think it's about time that the sector and the agricultural sector took some real ownership of that. And rather than waiting on ministers to tell us where or when we're going to get to somewhere, the sector says, hey, this is where we're going and this is what we're going to achieve. And I think that would be a much better outcome and ultimately get much better results rather than spending our time, debating the numbers and debating where we're going. So I think we've got some waterways that are in really good nick, but unfortunately we've got some waterways that aren't. And so, really focusing our areas on those ones that aren't, while, making sure that we really look after the ones that are.
Consumers in our markets are increasingly seeking assurances of sustainable and environmentally conscious farming practices. Do you think New Zealand farmers are meeting those demands?
Yeah, it's a real challenging one with farmers because we continually talk about lifting our game. Our game is actually really high already, so that's fantastic. And sometimes when I'm talking with farmers, they say, "Oh, when's it going to end?" Well, the truth is, it's never going to end. We're always going to have to continue to improve. But farmers are seeing the fruits of their labour in terms of producing a really high quality product, producing something that our consumers are wanting, and we're seeing that in particularly our beef prices at the moment, and in our dairy prices as well. So it's not really too much of a challenge. It's more just, I guess, just working out what those customers want and working out the ability to achieve that on farm.
We're sort of seeing now, coming on stream, this new technology and feed additives and so on to reduce greenhouse gas emissions on farm. Do you think farmers are up for that? They'll be taking on some of this new technology? Or do you think they'll need to be incentivised?
Well, it'll be around what drivers there are to do it. I mean, you just talked about our markets or our consumers. Some of them have been quite against using some of these feed additives and changing the makeup potentially of the product. So, it'll ultimately come down to those, buying the product at the end of the day. And then I guess what return it'll mean for the farmers or what incentive there is there for them to do it, because there's quite a high chance that some of them will come at a high cost, and so how will that be paid back into the future?
Last year, the farming sector presented a rural mental health strategy to the government to improve the well-being of people in rural New Zealand. How's that going?
Well, I would like to say that it's progressed, but unfortunately it hasn't. It's certainly another priority in 2025 is to keep that moving. Now, we understand that there was quite a lot that went across the minister's plate last year, but we think that they do need to step up in this space. It's the rural sector taking ownership of what they're doing there. It's pre the doctor's door that we're talking about, which is fantastic. It's not the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff. It's the work that can be done before then. So we think it's a worthy investment, considering the contribution that comes out of the agricultural sector towards the national economy.
And you've had your own struggles with mental health, and you've been very open about that over the years. You founded your social media platform, YOLO Farmer, highlighting mental health in the rural sector. And I read that part of your recovery has been to do something positive every day. Is this something, Wayne, that you're still able to do and that you have the time to do with all the hats that you wear?
Yeah, that's a great question, particularly at the moment, because I just have, in the first time in 7 years, I've just had a couple of weeks off. So, and one reason for that is I'm a naturally introverted guy, and I just needed to recharge after such a massive year on the road and out and about. So I took some time for my own mental health to recover. That doesn't mean that I didn't do something every day. I still did, but it was more that I guess I kept it to myself a little bit and just recharge myself. But it is slightly more challenging to do with a more public-facing role that I'm in. I can't always share everything that I'm up to, but I do enjoy sharing, a lot of life's journeys along the way with the people that are following along. Mental health shouldn't be seen as a sad and depressive type thing. Mental health is something that can be positive and can be smiles. It can be meeting people and learning new things. It's something that everyone needs to work on every day, and farmers are no different.
Wayne Langford speaking from his farm in Golden Bay.
At just over a year old, Miley the Huntaway has finally graduated to working with the rest of the dog team out near Homewood in coastal Wairarapa. She's been making good progress under breeder and trainer Chris Shaw.
When we first met Miley, her bark sounded like this. Since then, she's found her noise and now boasts a more powerful bark. It's just the type of noise breeder and trainer Chris Shaw is hoping to draw out from young Miley. We've been following along as he spent the last year raising and training her up to work alongside the rest of his working dog team.
Look who it is! Hello! Hi. Hey, big girl. Hi. Oh. Has she had a bit of a run today, or was this her first kind of time out?
No. So we did a bit of work this morning. Yeah, I thought I'd better do a bit of work just to take the edge off her. Yeah. So she's not. So she's not naughty.
Oh, you'd never be naughty, would you, Miley?
Oh yeah, like butter wouldn't melt.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year to you too.
It's been a couple of months since we caught up with you and Miley. It was September?
Yeah, I think it might be almost 4 months now. Yeah.
And what's been happening with you since? We're at a new place.
Yeah, so I've finished up my stock manager's job out at Homewood, but I'm now working for Quinn and Michelle on a new business venture. So I'm managing a block for them and also working for myself and a bit of a side dog training business. Yeah, that's keeping me pretty busy.
So you've turned, what was kind of a hobby into a full-blown business, which is quite cool.
Yeah, sort of something I've always been quite passionate about, and I guess Quinn and Michelle sort of gave me the kick in the right direction really, and I'm pretty grateful for that.
Between summer jobs on the farm and starting at a new property, it's been a little hard to find time for one-on-one training. That's not to say Miley hasn't been busy learning, though.
Basically, since the start of weaning, I haven't really done a hell of a lot of training. It's been more practical work. Like, Miley's just been going to work and just putting what she knows into practice, so there's been no formal training as such.
What kind of progress has she made since we last caught up with you guys?
She's a bit like a sponge, so for a while there she was taking everything on board. She's quite a hard nut to crack, really, because, she was learning quite fast, and then other aspects she's quite a slow learner, so it's been a bit of, she's a bit of a strange one. I don't think I've trained a dog like Miley before, like one that's sort of hot and cold and stop and start. She's got to walk, a stop, she's got her run, whistle. Pretty much like the last job for me to do now is to put sides on her. I just haven't really had the time to put the sides on her, but that's not her fault, that's my fault, just for being a little bit busy, but that's pretty much the last step, and then I wouldn't say she's fully broken in, but she just goes to work and does practical work.
What are some of the areas that you still would like to kind of see some improvement in?
So Miley, she's got beautiful noise, but it's not what we call like on tap, like good consistent flowing noise. She has got it when she wants to use it, and that's, I'm going to rephrase that, when she wants to use it. So it's more about bringing that free drawing noise out, which I'm actually really struggling with at the moment, but I'm not making an issue of it.
I think last time when we spoke, she was having a bit of an attitude problem. She was just maybe a little overconfident. It was a bit in Miley's world.
Yep. So she's still got the attitude, but now we're sort of getting along a bit better. For a wee while there, we were sort of butting heads together. Yeah, she can still be quite naughty, but the naughtiness is kind of dimmed down now.
She's trusting you a little bit more, letting you kind of take the lead. Yeah,
and I'm trusting her a lot more too, that she, I can get her to go and do a job, and she's not going to make a complete hash of it.
How's she with the rest of the dog team?
Good, but she seems to think that she's number one and that she should be doing everyone's job, which is, that's been quite difficult.
The trusting her and letting her take the lead a little bit, what does that look like?
The way that looks to me is that they get given the number one job, so she's the dog that gets called first to go and do that job, and they make a hash of it, and they will cut through the middle and do things that they all do, but there's only one way they learn, and that's to get out there and do it. So they'll make a few mistakes, and I mean, at the end of the day, that's what we need them for. They've got to make mistakes, and they've still got to be general stockmen, and you only get that by being out there and doing it.
Chris says every dog is different, and Miley is no exception. Miley's smaller than the average Huntaway, and more so than Chris expected.
Probably the other surprise is she's actually still quite small, and she's quite a narrow head, which from the breed that I've been breeding, they normally got nice square heads, and they're quite a solid tall size. So that's a bit of a surprise. I don't know.
She hasn't grown into her paws quite as much.
She hasn't really grown into herself. Oh. I mean, she's only just come up 12 months old now, and she's just had her first heat.
A bit more growing to do, you think, or you think this is?
I think she's fully grown. She might just go outwards now, but I mean, I do prefer them nice and small like that. I think nature is something I pride myself on. If they've got a good nature, then you they're pretty much the battle's won. And it's something I'm real hot on when I breed dogs, is they've got to have good natures, otherwise we're just not going to get along.
You're all grown up, Miley. What do you have to say about that? When you two are ready, you show me what you got.
Yeah, we'll go around there.
Yeah.
With the training sheep, and then.
As we near the yards with the training sheep, Miley switches into work mode, becoming more focused, with her ears pinned back and her eyes on the sheep.
And are these, I suppose, a new mob of sheep as well that you've also had to train up?
Yeah, these are sheep that I've just wrangled this morning, so they'll be a little bit frisky, but I mean, it's no different to what Miley's been doing at work. I mean, every day we're on frisky sheep, so she's learning pretty good.
Yeah. You can definitely see she's kind of switching into work mode.
Yeah.
She's having a quick look. Yep. Ears are kind of going back a little bit.
Yeah.
It's a familiar sight as the training rope goes on around Miley's back legs, and she stands in front of Chris, facing the sheep.
Even though that we've been doing a fair bit of work off the rope, I still, just for a start, put them on the rope, just a short reminder that we're here to do a job. Face up.
Following his commands, given by whistle, she uses her bark to direct the stock and keep them moving around the pen. Getting Miley to tap into her noise consistently has been a challenge for Chris. When he comes up against something he can't work through, Chris isn't afraid to ask those around him for advice.
See how, like I mentioned, that her noise is not really flowing?
Yeah, she kind of, I can see what you mean, it's on and it's off a bit. She kind of winds it down.
Yeah, something like I'm not really familiar with. Well, I wouldn't say I'm not familiar with.
But you haven't seen it in other dogs you've worked with so much?
Yeah, it's just something I like. This has just been a constant battle with me and Miley. Yet if I put them in a smaller pen and I just let her chase the sheep like she's full noise, like, yeah, it's just strange. Real strange.
If you encounter something like that you haven't had a lot of experience with or you haven't seen before,
Yep.
Do you lean on others in the dog trial community or
yeah.
other mates and things?
Yep. I'm forever asking questions to people, young guys, old guys, like forever. No two dogs are the same. Like you'll always encounter something. You'll always come across a roadblock and you just gotta nut heads with somebody else and
try and work through it.
Yeah, and guarantee somebody else has had the same problem. The whole noise thing with Miley, like this has been our huge bugbear the whole way along. Some days, depending on what dog gets out of the kennel, that's what I talked about her being hot and cold. Like some days it doesn't exist, and then you get a day like today that she's like, nah, I'm just gonna put out a few barks and then shut my noise off. Yeah. I guess because I've got her mother and I've got her sister and I also had their grandmother.
Yeah, I'm going to compare.
I'm going to compare, and it's a little bit out of the norm, and especially when I've got her sister. You sort of see them side by side, and they're completely different dogs.
If you had to use one word to describe Miley now, what word would you choose to use?
Keen.
She definitely enjoys the work. And
she loves work, and she's going to be a fabulous little work dog.
The third generation of Huntaways bred by Chris, he's been a little surprised by some of Miley's traits. Her bark will need a little more work still. Some dogs prefer working the hills to yard work.
Pretty happy with the way she's going for 12 months old.
Yeah.
Still pretty green, but... One thing, some dogs don't really cope with working in the yards that well. She's probably the same, she's just a little bit nervous, but some dogs are fine. Like, I fully broke her sister in a yard like this, whereas she probably learns more out on the hill than she does in here. Being left out on the face just to, use her brain and stuff like that. I wouldn't say her training's fully complete in the yards. I still do a bit in the yard with her on the rope, and I mean, when I first go to the yard, regardless of their age, they still come into the yard with the rope on. Then I just let the rope go, and then I take the rope off. It's just a system that I've got that I. But yeah, so her practical job is pretty much her job is to just chase mobs up and down the road, chase mobs in the yards, like pushing them through while I'm drafting. I just need to put sides on her, and then I can give her a sense of direction, and obviously a little bit more yard work like this. Like, I don't really like the way that she sort of gets on the other side of the sheep and she's running backwards and forwards, so I need to sort of steady that down. I'm fully aware that every time I sort of get into her for something, her noise drops off, so...
It's a confidence thing, you think, a little there?
Yeah, it is confidence, but sometimes too you got to ask whether you just got to wonder whether they're yanking your chain. If I drop my noise off, then I can get away with this type thing. Yeah.
I suppose she's at that. What stage would you say she is? Is she kind of teenager or she's past teenager? She's
probably past teenager. Like she's pretty much a young dog, really, like a young adult dog. Yeah, she will start to mature now that she's had her first heat. Yeah.
She looks happy. Tail's wagging.
Yep.
She enjoyed that, didn't you?
She has a bit more work still to do, honing her bark and learning her directions. From now on, she'll be learning on the job though, out with the rest of the team.
That was Chris Shaw and Miley the Huntaway, now just over a year old. Producer Janina Schwanecker will be checking back with them again in a few months' time to see how she's coming along. And some exciting news. Chris took Miley's older sister Duchess to compete at the Tanui Dog Trials last weekend, where she won the maiden, intermediate and open in the straight hunt. A first for the team and a real rarity in the dog trialling world. Congratulations, Chris and Duchess.
Kia ora, I'm Andy Blair from Upflow. We're trying to create feed from carbon dioxide and methane to feed your stock. You're listening to Country Life on RNZ National.
Now Cosmo Kentish Barnes is taking us back to Golden Bay to meet farmers Jock and Joyce Wyllie.
Oh, get up. We're at Kahoka,
northwest Golden Bay on our farm.
How would you describe the farm's landscape?
Rolling and a little bit of steeper hill, but it's got a lot of gullies and various bits of bush, native bush that's been left, manuka scrub that's regenerating, and a bit of gorse, of course. So just up round the corner is a neighbouring farm, the millers are up there, and then it joins on to the dock farms and Whauriki Beach and Fairwell Spit. Yeah. And that's Kahurangi National Park out there. And on the west side is the Tasman Sea, yes.
And you've been here since you were a child?
Yes, yep. So born in Collingwood, lived here all my life.
Where did you go to school?
Oh, I went to Packawall Primary and then into Collingwood for senior years.
Did you spend lots of time fishing and exploring the coastline?
No, not really. Dad wasn't really a fisherman or anything like that. He's just a worker. So we were always told the sea was a scary place because it was pretty rough and wild out there normally, so we weren't really involved that much with the fishing.
You'd stick to the farming side of things.
Yeah, that's just the way we brought up. We live here, so we don't go fishing. Yeah.
Tell me about your family connection with the land.
My dad came here in 1947. Him and his dad bought it. It was originally all rehab farms, very, very small subsistence farming, really, I imagine, living. And then Pitmore, the lawyers, and Nelson bought all them up. And when they got sick of farming it, they put it up for sale, and my dad bought it.
How much land did he purchase?
There's 3,000 acres all up, but we're down to about 2,000 acres effective. We sold some scrub blocks to Doc and subdivided off 3 sections in the bush on the way in to help us out financially.
So what do you farm?
Angus cattle, cows, just over 200 cows, and keep all the heifers through and sell the steers, and 2,800 Romley ewes. Yeah, sell all the lambs stored at the moment.
What about wool?
Well, wool, we haven't gone Wiltshire or anything like that. We're just sticking with the Romley, and we're not making money out of wool, but we're not, at this moment, we're not losing money either. So our boy Johnny comes home from Australia or whatever, he shares them for us now over 2 periods a year. We still pay him full rate, but it's just good to have him home.
Yeah. What do you love about living here and farming this land?
Well, it's all I know, really. It's been pretty tough the last few years because we're just not making money, and all the regulations coming at us. It was a bit scary there for a while, but they seem to have settled down with some more practical people behind things. So we're just starting to fence a few wetlands that TDC and DOC have actually funded for us. So we're just making the most of that and planting a few trees. Yeah.
Now, when you get time, Jock, you are very keen on dog trialling.
Yeah, I do like my dog trials. We travel around. It's not when we get time, I just make time. You could spend all your time on the farm if you wanted to, all your time and all your money, but it's all there for you tomorrow anyway when you get home.
It's good for mental health, isn't it, just to get off the farm sometimes?
Yeah, most of the time it is. Sometimes it's a bit frustrating. We're in Nelson Marlborough Centre, so we go all the way down to Kaikoura. But yeah, it's good to get away on road trips.
Tell me about your dogs. 2 of them are here. What makes a good dog trialling dog?
Well, for me, they've got to want to do it themselves because I can't be bothered battling with them. So if they want to do it, I'll take them, and if they don't, I won't take them. This one here is Trooper. I just bought him off my mate down the road last year. He whines a bit and all sorts of annoying habits, but I can see potential there.
So you'll train him up?
Well, he's already trained. I've just got to polish him off, take some of the tension out of him.
Yes. What about the other dog behind us?
Yeah, that's Jackson. He's a heading dog. He's got potential, but I tend to put a bit much pressure on heading dogs, so they're what we call just a bit of a bulldozer, really. He's a great farm dog, shift anything, but on the trial courses it's too much.
Down the road in the farmyard, Joyce is doing her daily chores. Joyce, you've just fed your chooks?
Yes, fed the chookies. Usually there's pigs here. I was going to show you the pigs as well, but they must be down the bottom swimming or doing something.
How many pigs have you got?
3 sows and a boar should be in there somewhere.
You've also got a house cow that you milk every day.
House cow, yep, and she makes milk to feed the calf. I've got a calf, orphan calf.
And this is where you've got several rather chubby-looking lambs.
These are the 8 that are left in bottles. That's their bottle feeder there. So they're only teasing. They got fed this morning, so they're wondering what we're doing here.
How old are they?
Happy a couple of months. Most of these came in during tailing, so they were a bit old, and their mum had abandoned them or got mastitis or something, so they're not never as quiet as the ones that you get as little fellas. So I think this year I only reared 15 pet lambs. One time I got up to 88, I think was the most, so that's all my little jobs.
And we are walking up the creaky stairs and into the wool shed, and you've got quite a few bales here.
Yeah, waiting to get picked up, but just pointing out that when Jock's mum and dad were here in the 80s, this was worth $1,000, and this is worth not much over 200 now.
That's 200 kilos of pressed wool.
Yep. So that's the reality of it.
Do you have a theory for why that's happened?
I think we stuck to pure wool too long. If we'd gone earlier with wool going in with other things, like if wool had gone in with cotton to make denim, we'd be selling a lot of wool. But I think the wool board stuck with pure New Zealand wool too long. But as Jock said, we're still believers. Yeah. One day it'll come right.
We are standing under the shed now, and you've been bagging up the sheep poo.
Yep. So the ridiculous thing is, one of those bags is worth $10 and one of these big bags is worth $15.
That's worth more than the wool.
Not quite, just about. But it's just contradiction that something comes out of a sheep bum is worth just about as much as what comes off a sheep's back.
How did you meet Jock, and when did you first come to Golden Bay? Because you're from
Gisborne. East Coast Gisborne, yeah. I was a vet, so that was the classic. I was visiting the farm and he was farming.
So you were a young, locum vet down here in Golden Bay?
In 1981. But only came as a locum while one of the other vets was away on holiday. And then I left and went to Stratford and Winton and East Gisborne and Stratford again and Ruatoria, and kept coming back here because he kept asking me to come back to Phil when there's only 2 vets here at the time.
And you would have been quite pleased, I guess, because you had already met Jock.
Yeah, I guess, but he's quite a lot younger than me, so we'd known each other for 17 years before we got married, so it was quite a long friendship. And so when we got married, I stayed as a vet for a little bit, but it's too far from the vet clinic to be working after hours. And then the kids were on correspondence school, so that was sort of focus for a number of years.
Did you always want to be a vet?
No, I was a boarding school girl from our farm. Went to Gisborne Girls Boarding School for 5 years, and I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And then the Lions Club had one of those evenings where they have a whole lot of people and all the students from the high schools go to, whether it's marine biology or lawyers or whatever. And my mum suggested, well, why don't you go to the vet evening? So went to the vet evening. There was an old guy called Matt Wallace, and the whole room was full of girls. For some reason I was 18 and I had my hair in pigtails, and he looked around the room and he pointed at me and he said, "You with the pigtails, why do you want to be a vet?" I had no idea whether I even wanted to be a vet. And he said it's not a job for girls, and you should all go and think about something else. And I remember walking out the door saying to him, I reckon if Mike Scanlon can be a vet, I can. Because Mike was the vet on the farm and he was a really small, slightly built guy. And all he said was, "I'll see you around then," which is actually not a really good reason to be a vet. So I did head off to Massey. But I don't know what else I would have done really. It was a good career. Being a large animal vet's the best because you're dealing with farmers and they're the best, really.
Joyce, we've come to where Jock is busy marking the calves. Those are the mums over there?
Those are the mums waiting to have their little chaps.
3-year-olds.
How many calves you got in this mob sheep?
Only 19. This is
Oh, yeah.
this is the half.
This is hard work.
I'm making it look hard work.
Now, Joyce, you are the newly elected president of the Golden Bay branch of Rural Women.
Golden Bay province, yeah, but that was only because somebody else had done the job for 9 years. So basically I'm part of the Pekua Rural Women, which Jock's mum was very much part of. So it's a good fellowship. It's a really nice fellowship of women. And my mum came down to live at Pekua after Dad died, so she was part of that as well. So she's been part of our family here as the kids were growing up.
You are also a writer. Tell me about that.
When I was at high school, I kept trying to drop English because I didn't like English because I'm a science student. Maths was my thing. And they made me stick with English till I was in the 7th form. And then it was a few years ago, I got fed up with our local Nelson Mail. Every Wednesday there was a 2-page rural feature, but all the articles in it we'd already read in one of the farming magazines. It was just regurgitated. So I wrote a letter and suggested to them that one week they could get a local sheep farmer to write something, and the next week they could get a local dairy farmer to write something. So they wrote back and said it was a very good idea, and I could submit a few pieces. And I could write about anything, what was topical or what we were doing on the farm or what I thought about the politics or something. And then it went on to stuff, and I was always surprised how popular it was on stuff.
Yeah, you had that freedom to express yourself.
Yeah, it was very free, so that was good. Until COVID came along, and then I got the sack because there was no rural pages anymore, and obviously media was struggling. So the GB Weekly realised I was an unemployed person. As if I needed something extra to do, they offered me a job. So I guess I've been writing for them since COVID. Yes. But the editor in the Golden Bay Weekly, she's always making sure that I know what a hanging participle is and all that sort of stuff. And I wouldn't have a clue. Oops, there's a calf.
It sounds like you are busy.
Sometimes. I do like having days at home when there's not much happening. But I also do funerals and weddings. So the marriage thing started back because the church that I go to doesn't have a minister, and there was some young couple sort of asking, well, we'd like to get married, but we didn't have a minister, so they asked if there was anybody in the congregation would like to become a marriage celebrant, and then slowly it's sort of morphed into funerals as well.
And you've got someone building a tree house on the farm, I hear.
Well, Michael's been coming and going from Kaihoka for, we can't even remember how long. He goes away and comes back. And he's had a couple of kids, which we got to know really well. And now he's got this folly, I guess it is, a treehouse folly. But he's plugging away there, and he'll get there in the end. And then, as he gets a bit more money, he'll finish it off. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's very kind of you and Jock to let him be here and enjoy this environment.
He's good company, and he's part of the sort of Kaihoka community.
I find Mike up a big old macrocarpa tree that stands alone on a hilltop.
Still got the scaffold on, so the door's only opening.
Wow, it's awesome.
Big window that'll look out over the loop. The little ones here.
Now, Mike, we are standing in an amazing tree house that you have constructed here on the farm.
Yeah.
How long has it taken to put this together?
Oh, this has been a while, mate. It's been a battle with wind and rain, as you can imagine. Ducking down the road, building the pieces and putting them together up here. So just been chipping away.
Yeah, and it's got a spectacular view.
Absolutely spectacular.
We can see the inlet over there.
Yeah, the Whanganui Inlet. We get some snapper and kawai and rig and flounder and kingfish. They've just started coming back. Plenty fish.
And today you are going to look for some power.
Yeah, we're gonna. Mate of mine's coming out. We're gonna go and get a few powers, duck out and get a feed. Yep.
How come you're here?
Years ago I was living in Pakawara, had a little hut there. Then when the old fella down the road and the old whitebaiters batch died, they offered me that place and spent the next 13 odd years out there. I also really like to go away.
Because you work in Australia quite a bit, don't you?
Yeah, I do remote work over there, mainly exploration work and a bit of guiding and sort of bush work and liaising with tribes and stuff like that. So the most recent one was sort of guiding botanists and ecologists for doing surveys on endangered plants and animals and things.
I did hear that one time you donated your salary to a community, is that right?
Yeah, to set up a community garden up in Doomadgee. So I donated, it was about 50 grand or something like that, and bought a little block of land out by the airstrip there and set up a community garden. And I thought it'd be a good way to sort of break down barriers, and it's hard to get good food there.
Where is that?
Doomadgee's sort of close to the Northern Territory, Queensland border, right up the top. So a little bit of land between the Gulf of Carpentaria and there, but yeah.
Right, I'm going to try and climb down onto this branch. Thank you. And onto another. Quite hard with my recording device and my camera. Here, oh, here we are. Back down on earth. We can see some sheep in the paddock here, and there are some cattle too, with some calves afoot. Yeah. So I guess you're used to sharing this land with them.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
Just up the road from the farmyards is a beautiful lake. Where does the water come from?
The rain. No inlet, no outlet. So you can see, even though we've had a lot of rain this last month, normally at this time of the year the water's right up here. So it shows what a dry autumn we had.
What are some of the natives we can see around the lake?
A lot of nikia, beautiful nikia. I don't think this has been milled. Cabbage trees here, of course, and karamu, a lot of karamu. But you can see which way the wind blows. The wind blows this way.
Now, not far from here on your farm, you hosted a crew from the Hobbit film. Joyce, tell me about that.
It was a few years ago. Peter Jackson knew about it because they had filmed some of the background for Lovely Bones on the limestone hills. So he sort of knew about it, and then they rang and said, would we be interested? And I was quite surprised that Jock said yes, he would be interested, because he's not a people person, didn't like crowds, and there was quite a crowd. So Peter Jackson came with a crew, and they had a look and they made a plan, and we had Unit 2 was here, which was Andy Serkis was in control of Unit 2. We had 72 big truck and trailer units with all the gear, the horses and the horse gear and the big marquees and a restaurant, and it was a pretty big deal. A lot of security involved. But they filmed for 2 days, and then they all headed south to Tekapo.
What scenes in The Hobbit did they film here?
The travelling. Who did the travelling? The dwarves did the travelling, didn't they? So it was travelling dwarves. So there was horses. I think about 16 or 18 horses or something, little ponies. And apparently in Middle-earth the ponies are hairy, so the horses had to get dressed up in hairy suits for the filming. But they were limited on how long they were allowed to be in a hairy suit. So there was a vet here looking after the horses, and each horse had a horse handler. So it was all quite interesting to watch.
And so quite a big setup for a few seconds, really.
Yeah, quite. Yeah, which was interesting. And they did a lot of work. They widened some gates. They had to put some bigger culverts in to get the trucks in. They had to put a big gravel place for them to park. So there's quite a lot of work went in beforehand, which was to our benefit.
Did you get full access to the set?
We got access, but we had to stay right out of the way. And Mum was with us one day, and we went down to the beach where they were filming, and then she decided that she wanted to go home and cook her tea. And it's like, no, you can't move. Once you're here, you can't move, because they don't want a person with a red cardigan walking back across the hill.
Joyce, do you like the routine of farming, the daily routine?
Yeah, I do. I like the routine. There's things you have to do, and you get them done, and you feel like you've achieved something each day. Sometimes it's not so fun when it's tipping down with rain and it's wet, and you think, who on earth, somebody's got to milk the house cow. But it's still something you do, and I quite like that. And we were talking before about what we liked about the farm, and it's a wonderful place to bring up kids. I think it's a great playground, a great learning place for kids, and they do have their routines. Mary had to feed the chookies, that was her routine. Johnny helped in the yards, and that was his routine. And I think that's a really nice thing to grow up with. And having family time, Jock was in at lunchtime, not off to work sort of in the morning and not see him till night time, which is the routine for most people in town, I think. So, very good family place. And that's why I didn't really want to stay as a vet. You'd miss all that. Go to work and come home and you wouldn't know what's happened during the day, so it worked for us.
Joyce Wyllie. Cosmo was also talking to her husband Jock Wyllie and tree hut builder Mike Southern at Kaihuka Farm in northwestern Golden Bay. Check out the photos at rnz.co.nz/countrylife.
And next week, Sally, you're taking us to the wild and wonderful Tora Coast, where one of the country's first farm walks is celebrating its 30th season.
Yes, and Cosmo's at a charity shear-a-thon. Thanks for joining us. We love getting your feedback and ideas for future stories, so do get in touch. Our email address is country@rnz.co.nz.
You can follow and listen to Country Life wherever you get your podcasts. If you enjoyed the podcast, we'd love you to give us a plug on social media or tell a friend about this show. Just click the share button in this app to send this episode to a friend.
The stories in this episode were produced and presented by Cosmo Kentish Barnes, me, Sally Round, and Janina Schwanecker. And in the studio production team today, David Knowles and Mark Chesterman.
Catch you next time.
Ka kite.